This is Nate Bain, Titans social media manager.
Hey everybody, it's Rhett Bryan, game day host of Titans Radio, and you're listening to the Titans of the Southwest podcast with Lito and Big Mo. All right, welcome to another episode of the Titans of the Southwest podcast, featuring part two of our two-part interview with Rhett Bryan of Titans Radio. In this episode, we're going to talk a little bit about the future of the Titans organization going forward, touching base a little bit on Malarkey, Jon Robinson. Lito, how do you think that went?
Oh, man, it was so great. Just to get insight from somebody that's right there, like boots on the ground, right next to the organization, in the organization, at these kind of press conferences. He talked about Vrabel. He talked about, Jon Robinson's tendencies, or at least what we can kind of pull from what we've seen so far. He just has such a wealth of knowledge, and I think we should try and get him on again down the line, because it's just
Definitely.
Absolutely amazing what this guy has in his brain.
Definitely. And I think he hit on a lot of key points of the Titans going forward, talking about moves they may or may not make to the roster, whether that's roster cuts, some free agents they might try to address, some upgrades at certain positions, what their thought process might be going into the draft as far as Jon Robinson and Mike Vrabel, and just what to expect from the organization going forward into the 2018 season and beyond. Really great stuff.
Well, here's part two of the interview we had with Mr. Rhett Bryan of Titans Radio. Hope you guys enjoy it. Tighten up.
Tighten up.
Follow us on Twitter at Titans Southwest. And remember to like and subscribe to the podcast, as well as review and share.
So I talked to you guys about kind of what the miracle was like, hearing it stereo live between the two people calling it. That was incredible. The leading up to the AFC Championship game in '99 against Jacksonville, that was something else. The team hotel at that point we were staying at Sawgrass, the home of the TPC, home of the PGA. Really nice place. And just to hear all of the people in Jacksonville, Florida, just smack talk, running their mouth, it was incredible. And I had an uneasy feeling about, gosh, can they close the deal a third time in a row to go to the Super Bowl? Holy Moses, can they do this? And I certainly internally I thought yes, but I had my doubts, because it was just laws and averages and numbers, But you turn on the weather in the hotel room that morning, the day of the game, and the lady that's doing the weather forecast, going to be a beautiful day at it was then Alltel Stadium, but going to be a beautiful day at the stadium for the AFC Championship game, where certainly the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to thump the Titans and go to Super Bowl 34. It's just like just a given, like rolled off her tongue like nothing, As we're going to the stadium and just people talking, and we'd heard a lot of that in the short time we'd been there. Get into the press elevator to go to the press box, and the elevator operator's giving us lip about it. And it's crazy, because I told a couple of the Titans executives at the time, I was like, you're not going to believe this. I said, but even the elevator operator's running his mouth about how they're going to beat the Titans and this, and that, and the other. And they're like, oh, really? And when it was all said and done, I'm riding down that same elevator with the same elevator operator and a couple of the Titans executives, and they were like, is this the guy? I'm like, yep, that's him. And he was very, very quiet for that ride down to the locker room. Steve McNair, what you may have heard before about him taking a nap before a ball game is 100% true. We have equipment that we have to hook up in the locker rooms, visiting locker rooms, to talk to the head coach and back then even sometimes the coordinators, to talk to Mike Keith upstairs. And so we would hook this equipment up prior to the game on game days a lot. And a lot of those same places where we would hook up would be a training room in the visiting locker room. And I can't tell you how many times I'd have a trainer or an equipment guy go, shh, hey, be careful when you're in there testing. Max taking a nap, and he'd be on a training table. He'd go out real early and warm up a little bit, and he'd come back inside and he'd take a nap. The lights are off. That really did happen numerous occasions. That was a cool, calculated, calm guy, happy guy. And again, people talk about how tough Brett Favre is. I think Steve McNair was the toughest quarterback to ever play. I've seen him play through some things that nobody thought he was going to play. You know, went through a period there in one season where he didn't practice just about every week, but yet he'd play. And just an incredible person, and still miss him being around. That day on 4th of July of 2009, it still haunts a lot of us here in Nashville. His murder. It's the worst holiday I've had as an adult. It's just bad. Period. On a light note, in '99, when I first started traveling, we were on the road and the Titans were playing the Baltimore Ravens. And so the game's over and I'm running downstairs with my recording device to go get post-game locker room interviews. And I can't remember if the Titans had won or not. I'm trying to remember. But anyway, you never know who you run into. And in this case, I literally bumped into as he rounded a corner and I rounded another corner. We met in the middle. And I excused myself and apologized for getting in his way, and he did the same. And it was a surreal moment just for a split second there because it was Johnny Unitas. And
wow.
I was taken aback a little bit. And just seeing, you know, that's the other thing about going to these teams where there's a long-standing heritage of league history. To see the people, like every time we go to Kansas City, to look over in that booth next to us and see Lynn Dawson, a Hall of Fame quarterback, calling on the Chiefs radio network, or, you know, when you go to Miami and you see Dan Marino, or, you know, just seeing those things, that's really cool. Now, give a couple of airplane charter stories, riding on the Titans charter, that were unforgettable, unbelievable, and comical. In the preseason of 2002, the Titans played the Vikings in Minnesota. And this began the first year of a partnership that the team had with Delta Airlines. It was the first flight on Delta with the new charter. So the Titans play the ball game, and we're all on the way back home. And just a few minutes into the flight, the pilot starts talking, and he starts talking more and more about some mechanical issue. And we're all watching the in-flight movie, and I punched the guy next to me. And I'm like, is he trying to sell us or sell himself? Because he's talking an awful lot, and this is making me nervous because the pilot should just be doing what a pilot does and get us home. Well, what had happened is the wing flaps on this plane had stuck in the outward or up position. And so it was creating an unbelievable drag on the airplane and just draining the crap out of the fuel. And so lack of fuel in an airplane, that's a problem. So we are now, I don't know how far into the flight, and he comes on the speaker and says, we're going to put the plane down, and we're going to do it at Chicago O'Hare because they have a longer runway than most places. So that gets your radar up. You're like, wait a minute, longer runway than most places. So you get to that moment on a flight where you're just about to touch the ground and you're about to see things, you know, kind of eyesight level land. You know, you've been up so high, now you're almost at ground level. And as we make the final approach and we're just hovering over the runway there, just a few feet from just touching down, you look out to the left of the plane and there is, I don't know how many different EMT fire trucks, hoses and foam ready, the whole deal. There must have been 50 of them there. He sets it down. It's a great landing. It uses up a good chunk of the runway, and we all live to tell about it. And we are pulling into the terminal. And this is like 2 a.m., 3 a.m. in the morning after a preseason game. And so Delta, because this is the first charter flight of a new agreement, already has another plane there at the terminal. They're already just feverishly pulling off equipment bags and getting everything changed over to the belly of the other plane because this is a huge inconvenience. Because this football team's got to get back. They got to go break down film, whatever. And so we're waiting in the terminal as they're moving the equipment over. And I hear the pilot tell Coach Fisher, these usually don't turn out this way. And I saw kind of the color leave leave Coach Fisher's face, and the color, I guess, must have left my face because we were like, oh my gosh, we came that close. And the other thing I remember about that in a comical manner was this was Albert Haynesworth's rookie year, and they were making the vets were making all the rookies sing their fight songs from their alma maters, and so they were trying to make him sing Rocky Top because he went to the University of Tennessee, and that was funny. Now, one other instance that I thought was funny was a flight we had. We were leaving Cleveland playing the Browns in November of 2005, and we were about to leave Cleveland, and we're sitting there, and and we figure out, and finally the flight attendants or the pilot, I forget who, says that there's a flat tire on the plane, and they have to change the tire.
Oh, no.
Well, here it is again. It's a Sunday evening, and there's nobody around, and so they have to go find the jack, the low profile jack to get under this plane because it's got all of us sitting on it, all of the gear, everything's ready to back up and take off. And so they have to find that, and then they have to find the mechanic that gets the tire. And I think they ended up having to bring a tire from somewhere else in this whole thing. And I think we sat there for 3 hours, maybe 4 hours, just bored out of our minds. And this was Pac-Man Jones' rookie year. And Pac-Man decided that he was going to provide some comedic value. And so he gets the little tray from one of the airline attendants, and he is handing out candy and goodies. He handed me a pack of peanut M&Ms. I'll never forget it. And just kind of bebopping his way down through the aisle there. But those are kind of just funny things that happened along the way in all of these games over the years. Some of them kind of scary, but most of them great and funny.
No, man, we love those. It kind of humanizes the whole thing and makes it so much more relatable. I mean, I haven't had that kind of experience, but I mean, who hasn't had a delay at airlines or anything that?
And it happens to an NFL team every once in a while. Absolutely.
Oh, that's comforting.
I just love I love the imagery with your stories, man. At one point when you were talking about running into Johnny Unitas, somehow I just pictured Mike Keith popping up behind you and screaming "sack, man!" If you would have knocked him down. I just pictured that.
Just having to run around with a Mike Keith voice box.
Yeah.
Something like that happens in your day-to-day life. Just hit the button. That's a $1 million idea, guys. We just got that.
There you go.
There you go. Trademark Southwest Titans. Okay. All right. Yes, exactly. Okay. Mo, do you have anything on that? I mean, we haven't even gotten to the Titans going forward. I'm just enjoying hearing all these stories. I mean, you can tell you've worked in the radio and you've done all this because as you're talking, kind of a flashback to what we talked about earlier, you're not pausing, you're not clearing your throat, you're not re-saying anything. I'm envious and it's amazing. It's really, really cool just to hear this whole thing unfold right in front of us. So again, appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem.
I'm just going to listen to this whole thing while I'm editing it around and take notes and learn while I do it as well. Mo, you have anything on that before we go forward to kind of touch on this season?
I say we jump into it, man. Let's jump into the present day and get some of his insight on that.
Okay. So, J-Rob's tendencies in free agency is a little unconventional, to kind of say the least. You know, his first day signings, free agency, he does like special teamers and a little lesser known people. Do you kind of think he stays that way or makes more of a bigger splash move now that the pressure's turned up a little on him this season, as some people say?
Well, I wish I had like a definitive answer for that because I don't think we have enough body of work to know what his tendencies are. And I think he is the master poker player and loves to keep all of us guessing. Yep. I don't think I would get any argument from the two of you of the masterful job that he's done in 2 seasons plus as the general manager, because he's been the architect of getting this thing back in the right direction for sure.
Phenomenal.
But I'll say this, I would love to say, yes, he's going to shock us all and get a big splash signing. I don't know that that's where he goes with this, because in hearing the constant message now with he and Coach Vrabel, it's about finding the right 53 guys. And certainly if there's a free agent on the list of potential guys that haven't been franchise tagged or renegotiated with their own teams, maybe there is something there for that. But I also know this. He is looking at it from today, and he's looking at it from down the road as from a 30,000-foot view, because, guys, you got to realize he's got some cap money for sure. Depending on what the cap number is going to be, he's going to have around $50 million with what they rolled over from the 2017 season and what the cap is estimated to go up to. I think there will be another move made that will free up more money, and I think that will be either the release or the retirement of DeMarco Murray. I do believe that, and that's that's a shame, because DeMarco has done a lot for this ball team and getting it in the right direction. And you talk about a guy that's a leader and an all business type guy, to get his guys around him to play to his level of intensity and expectation. But I think, you cut him or he retires, that's $6.5 million that you free up there, because that deal that he signed, although it was a 4-year deal, was front loaded in terms of incentives and bonuses. But you're going to have to pay Taylor Lewan. He's in his 5th-year option now that they've picked up, and that's 9.4 million against the cap. You're going to have to pay him, and you may have to make him the highest paid left tackle in the game. And what Russell Okung and Trent Williams and a lot of those guys have made in the last few deals, and that average per year money is about 13.5 million a year. And I think you're going to have to go above that. And certainly he deserves it. I wouldn't argue with that at all. He is one of the cornerstones of this team. He is still maturing, but he has gotten a lot more mature in the last couple of seasons. And you're going to have to pay Marcus Mariota. He's in the final year of his rookie deal. You're going to have to exercise his 5th-year option going forward, and that window is currently open. I think you have till May the 2nd to make that determination. But you're talking about a number that's going to be north of $20 million for that 5th-year option, just because he was the 2nd overall pick. I mean, Blake Bortles is a prime example. He was under the 5th-year option in 2017. I think it was $19.3 million, and he was the 3rd or 4th overall pick in the year he was drafted. So, and certainly with quarterback money, we saw what Jimmy Garoppolo got just 3 weeks ago, and that market is going to reset itself with whatever Aaron Rodgers gets the next time around, or Matthew Stafford, or whoever. So those big bucks are coming, and you still have some pieces to put in place. So I'd like to say that he would make a splash, but I don't know.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, I got nothing else on that. I mean, it's difficult with him, because you're right. He's a master poker player, and like I said, I'm a big fan of his. I think a lot of people are. Whenever I went down and saw that game, I saw him walking on the field, and I was like taking pictures of Mariota warming up and everything, and I saw Jon Robinson, and I was like, I have to. I just took a picture of him as well, because I'm like, he's good, man. He's one of my favorites on the organization as well. So,
well, it makes you, Lito, it makes you wonder, with the body of work that he's put together as a general manager now, how many other teams would just give whatever to have him running their show? I mean, think about it.
Oh, definitely. I mean, if he was with even the Browns, we kind of touched on this on a previous episode. If he was with the Browns with that much cap space and that much picks and currency, holy cow! I mean, he would. Yeah,
5 picks in the top 65 or whatever. Yeah, that'd be fun to watch. But I'm glad he's right here, and I don't think he's going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah, and him being a local boy, and his opening press conference, that's the moment I think I fell in love with this guy. Just like, I want us to win just as much as you guys do. Like, I want this team back to where it was, and just talking about his familiarity with the Titans, being from that area, and that kind of being in his life, that was really comforting.
Lito, that's the moment I think he had us all, when he was emotional about it, and to use his term, I'm going to roll up my sleeves and go to work. And he's done exactly that. He is relentless in his evaluations. He is all the time studying something. I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah, definitely. And I know you kind of touched on DeMarco Murray a little bit, either retiring or being released. I know on a previous episode of Midday 180, you were kind of quoted as saying that you could potentially see another big roster turnover for the team coming this year. Any kind of particular players you have in mind on that, or?
Well, I think I'm speaking mostly from let's see how many free agents they have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 11 free agents, I guess, of their own. So you have to think of it in terms of that. And I didn't necessarily mean it as they're going to cut a bunch of guys that are under contract. But I do think that DeMarco Murray is going to be a decision that's going to be made. I still think that Rashard Matthews may be a decision that might be made because and maybe he gets a clean slate start over with a new coaching staff and everything. And he's certainly one of the better receivers that they have. But he kind of disappeared at the end of the year, and I know that he did have a hamstring that aggravated there late in the year. But I just wonder if there's, because Jon Robinson is all the time talking about getting the best 53, the right 53, and he's going to churn that roster because you got to realize he came from that New England product, and that you talk about a team that is constantly churning, and think about the people that they've jettisoned over the years when they just figured out it didn't work or it wasn't right fit or whatever. That wouldn't surprise me if that was one of those moves. I wouldn't be surprised if they kept Rashard Matthews. I wouldn't be surprised if they cut him or released him. But you look at the other list of free agents that you have. Eric Decker, he'll be 31 years old, possession receiver. Do you think that was a good experiment, or do you think that's worthy of bringing him back, or do you think that's move on? What do you guys think?
I kind of think, even though he made the clutch catch, I kind of think they need to move on.
All right, because that was a one-year deal. Harry Douglas will be 33 years old, and I think because of his alliance and allegiance and connections with Mike Mularkey and Terry Robisky from before with his days in Atlanta, and certainly his age, I think Harry is probably gone.
Yeah, he's going to be a wide receivers coach in Buffalo.
Okay, he might be. You never know. Eric Walden will be 33 years old. I think that's another one. Bryce McCain, I think you can upgrade at nickel corner there. Josh Klein, I'm one that certainly I wouldn't mind them re-signing him as an insurance policy, but I feel like you can upgrade a guard there. Yeah. Eric Weems, 33 years old. I think that's done. Brandon Whedon, he'll be 35, and that's a point that I think they need is another backup quarterback. So I'm speaking in terms of maybe they move on from Matt Castle as well. Avery Williamson, I think, is going to get big money in free agency. I think he will make more or bring more than Jon Robinson may want to pay. But out of all the two that I didn't mention, obviously Ryan Suckup gets a 5-year, $20 million deal, very well deserved. Some people thought it might have been a little steep, but you look at his numbers and they're right up there in the top 3 or 4 guys, and that set the market for what kickers will get from here on out. So you have him and Bo Brinkley and Brett Kern all locked up in long-term deals, and those pieces and parts there don't need to be fixed. They're not broken. And Daquan Jones, if I'm Jon Robinson, that is my number one priority now that I've signed Ryan Suckup, is to get him back in a Titans uniform. And I think you can get him at a discount with the ruptured bicep that he had late in the year, and get him back here because he's good in that front 3 without a doubt. So, there's a handful of guys there that more than likely won't be here. And then who is available in the free agent process, and certainly you're going to have draft picks. You'll have 6 or 7 draft picks again this year. So you're talking, by the time you add up the numbers, you could have a 20-25% roster turnover again.
Yeah, that's fair. And I think I agree with you on just about all of those. I'm really interested to see on this Ryan Matthews things, because I think it's going to be kind of a way to test how J-Rob goes forward, because yes, the Patriots were not afraid to cut people right off the bat. If they couldn't bring anything to the table, cut them, bring somebody who could. But since he is a little bit different, does he give that 1-year leniency, since it was a multi-year contract, as opposed to like Eric Decker, where it's just 1 year and then you're probably more than likely gone with Tajay Sharp coming back and and things like that? Does he give that 1-year leniency to Rashard Matthews? So I'm really interested to see what he does with that now. I always thought that it was just going to be a shoo-in that he would stay, because I'm used to the Titans kind of holding on to people for more than they probably should have for years.
Well, and I think that's really why I say it wouldn't surprise me if he stayed, also because of, you look at the current wide receiver room, it's Rashard Matthews and it's Corey Davis and it's Taywan Taylor and it's Tajay Sharp. And that's it.
Yeah. Might need a transitional piece to, if they are going to bring someone else in. I get that.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same mindset that you were, Rhett, with that. Going into this offseason, I kind of thought it could go either way with Rashard, just by seeing what he's vocalizing on social media, saying goodbye Nashville, things like that. He kind of gave a gave me a hint that maybe he wasn't a lock for the roster next season. So it's going to be interesting.
Well, and he came out publicly to us that day in the locker room towards the end of the year and said that he pretty much wished that Marcus Mariota was calling the offensive plays. And so, that didn't do him any favors with that coaching staff, but that coaching staff's gone. So, it could be a clean slate thing. But look, if I'm Jon Robinson, and certainly he's a whole lot smarter than I am, but if I'm looking at needs and points of emphasis for the Titans going forward in this draft, it's a pass rusher.
Definitely.
And it is a guard or two. It's another corner for depth. And I'm talking free agency and draft, just needs overall. And certainly you'll have he'll take a wide receiver somewhere along the way or whatever, but pass rusher, guard or two, and a backup quarterback. You got to figure out a backup quarterback situation. I feel like you need to get younger in that spot. And I tell you something else too. If Avery Williamson gets what I think he'll get in free agency, I think there's a chance to upgrade what you get an inside linebacker with him, and that's no slight to Avery Williamson. He's a great person, but I think you can get a better prospect there or get a better linebacker at that spot.
I think so too.
So you don't think Williamson would take a hometown discount or anything?
Is there really such a thing as a hometown discount anymore? I mean,
not so much, but I'm just trying to cling to hope.
Yeah. I just feel like, if you look at a team like the New York Jets, how much money they're going to have.
Yeah.
And maybe even Cleveland. I mean, somebody's always got pockets, deep pockets.
Yeah. He's looking.
And
money,
again, we're talking, and again, we're talking about knowing what you're going to have to do going forward, because you're going to have to pay your left tackle and your quarterback in the immediate future.
Yeah. You got to think ahead. I get that.
And a change of pace running back. Let's not forget that too.
Oh yeah.
I think you need that too. But anyway.
Yeah, maybe not in the first round like Mel Kiper threw out there, but
No. I would prefer that Jon Robinson go pass rusher there.
Yeah.
He set up the season ticket thing to introduce Coach Vrabel. Hey, I have a tendency to trade, and my phone is always open and on. So
wheeler and dealer.
You never know.
That's
Trader
true.
John, as Mike Keith calls him.
So that kind of touches into the next part here with this new unfamiliar draft position. 25th. We haven't been this far back in a while, and obviously since J-Rob's been here. Do you think that moves him more towards a best player available now, or are we just still in the place where we have to actively target specific situations?
Well,
or position.
Last year's draft would tell you that it's not always about the best player available, because what did he do with the 5th overall pick? He went and got a wide receiver, and everybody thought, well, gosh, he picked Corey Davis that high. But if you look at the other two big guys that was mentioned in that offseason draft process, in a John Ross and Mike Williams, they went all inside the top 10. So he knew what he was doing there. And then at 18, he takes Adoree Jackson. He takes the defensive player of the year in the Pac-12 in Adoree, and knowing what he could do in the return game and knowing what he could do as a defensive back. So he went with a couple of needs there. Again, he doesn't have as much of a body of work for us to kind of figure out what the moves are. He's clearly using some old Muhammad Ali rope-a-dope methods here.
Yeah.
He is lulling us to sleep and then knocking us out, man.
Yeah. I don't know how long it's going to take before we even can comfortably say we got a handle on what he does. I don't know if we ever will, to be honest with you.
He may be like the weather around Tennessee. That it just continues to change and keep you guessing. Who knows?
That's true. That's very true. Do you have anything on the draft or free agency, Mo?
Not me. I feel they're going to go defense. If I had to guess, especially with the hire of Vrabel, I would guess pass rusher, but it depends who's there at 25. I wouldn't be surprised if he tried to package a deal to possibly move up if he saw a can't miss defensive pass rusher. But who knows? Who knows?
Yeah. Well, you also touched on Vrabel's welcome party recently. What can you tell us about that? I mean, we know there's 8,000 people. Everyone saw the videos. It looked like a rock concert for some of it. I mean, how did that go?
It was, I think it was well received. Amy Adams Strunk was out prior to the start of the program, talking to fans and shaking hands and taking pictures, and that's where I heard her tell a young boy that's a fan of the team that he asked about the uniforms, and she said the helmets are changing. The helmets are going to change, and the uniforms are going to change. And she told some colleagues of mine back in training camp that, the change would not be minor. Now, I don't know how major overhaul of this thing is unless something has changed with the NFL in terms of protocol with those things, because used to, if you took a TNT box to something and just blew it up and started all over, that was a 5-year deal. This is a 2-year process with this. So I'm very interested to see what the uniforms and the helmets are going to look like. In fact, I had fans, a couple of fans asked me last night, come on, man, you've seen them. I'm like, no, I haven't. I have not seen them. I know people who have been sworn to secrecy and cannot tell me anything at all. And so I'm very, very interested to see that. So they kind of went through a calendar of events for season ticket holders in this program. And that's one of them, April the 4th. At Riverfront Park, there on Broadway in downtown Nashville, amongst all the honky tonks. They're going to unveil the uniform, and I guess they'll have some players come out and do that. It's funny, I was there for the first unveiling in the parking lot of the stadium before the stadium was finished in 1999, and that was interesting. And so this is going to happen. It's a open to the public, free event, and then they're going to have a concert afterwards with Florida Georgia Line. And I think if you guys are like me, I want to see what the uniform is, and then I'm going to go report about that and kind of move on. But
yeah,
definitely.
But so important dates, they were kind of going over a calendar of things, and certainly the next one is obviously the Combine is coming up in the next few days and the next coming week. And after that, free agency, March the 14th, 3:00 Central is when it will start for the Tennessee Titans. And then after that, the NFL draft, and that's April the 27th from AT&T Stadium in Dallas. And Titans Radio will have all kinds of coverage that week, where we will get things ready to see who the new Tennessee Titans are. And then we're going to have a wrap-up show that following Monday, which I believe is April the 30th, where General Manager Jon Robinson will join us for the wrap-up special, something that he has not done. He's done it over the phone and kind of given us his thoughts on where he went and why he picked a certain guy, but he's going to actually join us live for the broadcast, and we're really looking forward to that. And then April the 2nd, starts the off-season training program, and because there's a new head coach in place under the current rules of the CBA, those guys get a 2-week head start over everybody who's has a returning head coach. So Mike Vrabel will start the offseason program on April the 2nd, and then that will lead into a rookie minicamp that will happen the next weekend after the draft in early May, and that will lead on to organized team activities, and then a mini camp that will be in the middle of June, and then that's when everybody breaks and goes on vacation for 5 or 6 weeks, and then they come back and get ready to rock and roll for training camp. And of course, another important thing this year, in week 7 or week 8 of the regular season, the Titans will go to London for the first time to play the Los Angeles Chargers, and that will be revealed. And that's the other thing I jumped over. There were so many things they covered. The regular season schedule will be revealed right there in mid-April, right before the draft. So we'll figure out what date that will be, whether it will be October the 21st or 28th in London, England, at Wembley Stadium against the Chargers. So there's all kinds of things on the horizon. So new coaching staff, another crop of rookies coming up, and free agents coming up, and then all those things that lead into the regular season. So it was really neat to be there at the function, and they had gave away some really nice prizes. This couple that's been longtime personal seat license holders and season ticket members got an all expenses paid trip to go see that London game, and another guy got a package to go see the draft in Texas, and just a lot of things last night. It was a lot of love for their fans, and the fans are clearly excited about the direction that the team is going. I think a lot of folks wanted to see a change in head coach after with the offensive woes that the team had in 2017, and they got their wish with that. And now all the pressure is on Mike Vrabel and his staff. But the fact that he was able to steal away Dean Pease from the Baltimore Ravens, he had actually retired after their season a few weeks ago, and he talked him out of retirement to come and coach with him because Coach Pease actually loves Mike Vrabel, and he coached Mike Vrabel in New England and called him the smartest player he's ever coached. Dean Pease did at this function. Wow. And so there's a lot of good things on the horizon, but all the pressure is on Jon Robinson and Mike Vrabel and his coaching staff.
I thought it was real cool, man, in some of the videos that I saw from the event last night, that the music they chose for Vrabel to come out to was Stone Cold Steve Austin's old song. And I was like, how fitting, like they're bringing in Vrabel to open up a can of whoop-ass next year. So I loved it. I loved it.
I'm so glad that you brought that up, Big Mo, because I thought the same thing. I took my daughter with me to the event, and I was like, is that Stone Cold's entrance music? I'm like, that's Stone Cold Steve Austin's entrance music. And I just, the only thing missing was the clanging of a couple of beer cans together and chugging some beers and doing a Stone Cold Stunner. But yeah, I thought
legendary if he did that, though.
Oh my gosh, yeah, he would have had us all in a frenzy for sure. But yeah, it was a really cool event.
Yeah, definitely. I didn't know that that was his music coming out. I didn't catch that. I watch wrestling here and there, but I didn't even catch that. So I learned that.
I just heard the glass shatter, and then out comes Vrabel, and I said, "Oh wow, this is cool."
That's really cool. We also heard a lot from both Malarkey and J-Rob in the past that they were similar mindset and on the same page. Pretty evident and obvious now that they maybe weren't after all. How is the connection from Malarkey and J-Rob actually different from the one with Vrabel and Jon Robinson, from what you can tell?
Yeah, and that's, because Coach Vrabel's just come aboard in the last, 4 or 5 weeks or whatever, and don't really know him or know his style and philosophies yet, because this is his first time out as a head coach. But I think certainly in the beginning, those thoughts and visions were aligned, and I think they were for the most part through a good chunk of Mike Malarkey's tenure as head coach. I just think the stubbornness in staying in some of the offensive schemes at some point, and I don't know where the dam broke in this case, but I'd say if you look at it in 2017, it had to have started somewhere around the time where the team went out to play the Arizona Cardinals and stayed out there for the week to get ready to go to San Francisco to play the 49ers in Santa Clara, and just, how that 3-game skid and that terrible loss to the Cardinals and the last minute loss to Jimmy Garoppolo. And then the way they lost, Christmas Eve to the Rams, and it came down to it's a win and you're in scenario to beat the Jacksonville Jaguars to get into the playoffs for the first time in 9 years. And then you think about after the playoff win in Kansas City, one of the first things that someone asked Coach Malarkey was about his security and whether there's these reports that he may be let go, and he immediately latched onto that and talked about how it had affected his family and how he didn't, I don't forget what his exact quote was, but
it's not fair to his family or something.
And he didn't feel like that he had full confidence. He has had zero indication that he had full confidence in ownership or whatever. And, Miss Amy Adams Strunk put out a statement the next day, I guess it was, that she believed he was the coach going forward, and clearly something went awry in the days that leading up to that division game in New England, and certainly after that loss in New England. But I think it was a cumulative thing over a period of time, but it appeared to be okay for a while. But I think towards the end of the season, maybe it's where it got fractious. In terms of a relationship or aligned thinking with Coach Vrabel, I certainly think that although they didn't hang out outside of football in a casual setting with their families or going out or whatever, when they had time in New England, when Jon Robinson was in an area in regional scout for the Patriots, he certainly was around him a lot in those situations. And I'm sure they got to build a relationship within that building. Because, those guys, everybody spends an enormous amount of time together, as you can imagine. And to hear anybody talk about Mike Vrabel, they talk about how he's extremely smart. The work ethic is there. The desire is there. Just giving 110% when others may not, or at any given time. And certainly Mike Malarkey had that work ethic. But it sure seems like in that opening presser to introduce him as head coach that he is open to ideas and open to I mean, he wants the success of the team in all three phases. So one of the ways you do that is open up that offense. And, we talked about it earlier in this podcast. I know what Mike Heimerdinger did for Steve McNair. And if Matt LaFleur and a guidance of Mike Vrabel from a 30,000-foot view can help foster that, good grief, man, the sky's the limit. You've got to be able to protect Marcus. That's the thing. I think your guard play can be improved, and I think if they make the right moves there, I think Marcus will certainly have his opportunity to soar, like I believe he certainly can. But yeah, 2018 is going to be a heck of an interesting year for the Tennessee Titans, from a European game to the division they're playing. You're playing the NFC East. You're going to be playing the Cowboys and the Redskins. You're going to playing both Super Bowl teams at home in Nashville. You're going to be playing the New England Patriots and the Philadelphia Eagles in Nashville. It's a heck of a home schedule. New uniform tweak. So there's all kinds of things on the horizon.
And it seems like, as far as kind of going back to the Malarkey Vrabel thing, they had a similar mindset, similar outlook, but a really big defining difference between them is it seems like Vrabel is more willing to adapt, adapt or die type of look at things, and Malarkey maybe wasn't. And I said it before, Malarkey seems to have shown how far a team can go on just pure heart alone. Maybe not the scheme kind of helping people out or anything like that. I mean, he did do a great job turning the franchise around, but towards the tail end, it was his unwillingness to kind of adapt and his, desire to really stay stubborn that may have been his inevitable downfall. And maybe Vrabel is able to kind of take that extra step or take that extra few steps, however many it takes, and push us over the top. So that's just kind of what we see.
And to your point, Lito, when you heard that press conference to announce that they parted ways with Mike Malarkey and that a search was immediately on, one of the first handfuls of questions that was asked of Jon Robinson was the inability to, not just the inability, but I guess when Mike Malarkey had his closing press conference, like a day before or whatever it was, 2 days before, he said that he felt like that Terry Robisky did a good job, and how hard it was to be an offensive coordinator, and how he thought that the offense, did a really good job, and that everything was good. And someone asked Jon Robinson, are those comments and those kinds of stances one of the reasons why he's no longer the coach? And he said, I would have to say yes.
Yeah, that seemed like a nail in the coffin, that conference.
Yeah, our sideline reporter, Jonathan Hutton, and I went to that press conference, and we left scratching our heads going, wow, I don't know what's going to happen here, but it may not be good for Mike Malarkey. And then to underline your point, Lito, with Jon Robinson, with Mike Vrabel, in his opening introductory presser, somebody asked him about being willing to adapt or to have his input in a game day sideline situation. Would he insert himself? He said, absolutely. He said, if I think we need to go throw a bomb, I'm going to go talk to the offensive coordinator and say we need to throw a 50-yard bomb. If I think we need to do whatever, I'm going to try to do whatever I can to get this team over the top and to get a victory. So that tells me he is open to, and again, like I said before, he caught 12 touchdowns as an extra tight end and as a defensive player, and 2 of them in the Super Bowl. That tells me he's open to changing things and open to new ideas, or certainly non-conventional things, or things he sees a tendency or a key given up where he can take advantage of it.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. Mo, you got anything on that before we start wrapping it up?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Well, as you can probably tell from the questions that we asked and everything, we're trying to steer a little bit away from the typical stuff, because in this digital age, everybody already has, the answers. If you give these answers on one platform, likely everybody's pretty familiar with it. Like, what are your impressions of Vrabel and, leader of men? We tried to kind of stay away from those basic questions that probably get asked a lot of different places. But given your knowledge and background, do you have kind of any advice that you can give us on kind of how to continue what we're doing and be a place where people within the organization surrounding it, such as yourself, would want to come on and join us and kind of continue this?
Well, I think the easiest thing for you guys is just to continue to do what you're doing. You obviously, both of you guys have a passion for this franchise and for this football team that goes back a long ways. And you certainly have knowledge of that, and you have your own ideas and thoughts about where things are going and where they've evolved from, and just continue to work at that. And, I'm an old radio hack, man. I've been in radio for 28 years, and I learn something every day. And so find the facts, learn something, do research, and continue to embrace your team and love it, win, lose, or draw. It certainly sounds like you guys both do that. And, as you continue to procure guests for the Titans of the Southwest podcast, you will raise your profile. You'll have more followers on social media, and you'll keep clicking right along. Certainly, I just get the word out in your area that, hey, we're here to help bring you Titans news from a different perspective. And just like with your line of questioning with me in this podcast, just keep thinking outside the box. And maybe there's something X's and O's or a certain situation that you wanted to know about that maybe along some of those lines, but wasn't directly answered. But certainly continue to think outside the box. I would do that and just keep pounding away at it. Keep doing what you're doing. You guys are just kind of getting started in this vein of things, and I like to see people who are passionate about what they do. And in hearing your previous podcast, I certainly hear that, and like what you guys are presenting. That's one of the reasons I came on to do the podcast with you, for sure. But just keep plugging away at it. Yeah,
we definitely appreciate that, man. I'm going to take all of that to heart. Every single word. It means a lot, to be completely honest with you. It means a heck of a lot.
The other thing I would say is continue to just give it your best. Do your dead level best every time you guys put one of these podcasts together, and you'll watch them grow as you grow in this product, for sure.
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate that. Yeah. And Lito does as well.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely appreciate that, because we do put a good amount of work, research, and talk to each other. What do we want to do? How do we want to present it? Do we want to be just another drop in the bucket, or do we want to actually make a difference and be something that people will tune in for a full 2-hour episode while they're going about their day? So it's definitely appreciated, man. I really thank you very much.
Well, you hit one of the keys. Preparation prevents poor performance. I promise you. That was something that was always preached to me by an old program director I had in radio many, many years ago, and he's exactly right. If you're prepared, you have more confidence. You will exude more confidence. You'll be ready to kind of get things moving forward, and sometimes be able to ready to switch on the fly when something changes or happens. So just keep prepping. That's the deal.
That's the plan. That's definitely what we're going to do going forward. Mo, do you have anything before we start wrapping or saying our goodbyes?
No, I'm just very grateful, man, to have you, and to me, hearing these stories from somebody who actually experienced them live, it was incredible. I was like taken back a little bit. So thank you for that, sir. I appreciate that.
Glad to do it, Big Mo. No problem at all. And like I said, you're passionate about the Titans. I am too, and that makes us kind of brothers of the airwaves.
All right.
I really appreciate you coming on, Mr. Bryan, and we'll definitely be in contact going forward. And what else can I say but tighten up, right?
Absolutely. And listen, and that's the other thing too. You can tell that I love talking about this, or I wouldn't have given up 2 hours here. Yeah. And it's just we could talk all night, literally. And
I could definitely too.
So I'm glad to hear that you're going to chop it up, because you could make it in 2 or 3 parts if you needed to. I don't know if I will attract any listeners to you or not. I certainly hope I do, and hope I haven't bored you, and I hope I don't bore anybody.
Oh no,
the podcast. For sure.
No, I've been sitting up in my chair like completely just hanging on your every word, and not even an exaggeration this whole time. So it was great.
I'm forgetting we're on the phone call, man. I'm forgetting we're on the phone call.
And do me a favor. And do me a favor, certainly, yes, certainly we'll be in touch, but do me a favor when you guys come to Nashville, because I didn't realize you'd been coming to Nashville to the games occasionally. But please let me know when you're in town. I'd love to meet you guys and give you a tour by the radio station cluster. Wow. And certainly see Titans radio studios and just meet you face to face and talk more Titans.
Yes,
definitely.
Yes, sir. You will be one of our first phone calls.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you very much, sir. And next time you see Miss Strunk, just give her a big old hug from both of us. I'm going to start telling everybody that because I'm going to make it a goal to give her a hug if I ever meet her.
All right.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thanks,
All right,
man.
guys. Have a good
Appreciate
night.
it.
Take care. All right.
You too.